Well, welcome back once again. It's been a busy week here in Helena. On Friday, I joined Americans for Prosperity to rally in support of our historic tax cuts for Montanans at every income level. Montanans from every background showed up in support. A single mother trying to make ends meet, retirees, small business owners, college students trying to pay tuition, and even some conservative legislators who understand the importance of broad-based tax cuts. Because they know our proposal, like our past tax cuts, will return money to the pockets of Montanans. And we must, because even with the tax reforms we've done already, the rate most Montanans pay today is the highest in the region. Later that afternoon, we received support for our conservative proposal from Donald Trump Jr. He compared our tax cut to the 2017 Trump tax cuts I was proud to vote for when I was a member of Congress. Don Jr. said our tax cut is just like the one that was pushed by the president. It lowers the rate that most Montanans pay and provides relief to income taxpayers at every single income level. Because I know, like President Trump does, when you lower income taxes, folks keep more of what they earn, small businesses invest, and they create jobs. Now, there's a lot of proposals out there in the legislature about how to reduce income taxes this session. Some only benefit some taxpayers, and that's just not right. Our proposal benefits Montanans at every income level, just like our past proposals that Senator Greg Hertz carried in 2021 and Senator Becky Beard carried in 2023. Our tax cuts have led to record low unemployment in Montana and record wage growth in Montana, even outpacing inflation. Also, record job creation, record business creation. Our policies have worked. This is not a time to slow down. While I join all Montanans in being disappointed with the Senate's vote yesterday, I am optimistic that by working together, we can get it done for the Montanans who sent us here. And we must. Montanans are counting on us. While we continue to promote our agenda, I've been proud to sign several bills into law to protect the privacy and security of women and girls in spaces like bathrooms, shower rooms, changing rooms, and other public places, and to continue funding Montana's public schools at historic levels. Most recently, on Tuesday, I signed House Bill 15 into law to support our public schools, our teachers, our students, and their parents. I'd like to thank Representative David Beatty and the legislature for once again providing funding to ensure every public school student has access to a first-class education. As we continue to advocate for our priorities, we are working to shore up Montana's foundation, securing a brighter future for our families and our communities. I said when I unveiled our budget proposal that the path to security and prosperity, that the strong foundation of a prosperous society is made up of three pillars. First, economic freedom. Secondly, access to opportunity. And thirdly, safe communities. Our tax proposals are aimed at expanding economic freedom and access to the American dream, creating an environment that supports businesses to create more good-paying jobs. Our educational priorities are aimed at supporting our public schools and expanding parental choice in education, making sure every child has the opportunity to reach his or her full outstanding potential. And our public safety priorities are aimed at protecting our communities. As governor, I'm committed to ensuring that every Montanan feels safe at home, at school, at work, and in their neighborhood. One of government's chief responsibilities is keeping citizens safe. And here in Helena, we have a duty to confront our state's public safety challenges head on. We must have the resources we need to lock up violent criminals and hold them accountable for their actions. We must support victims and back the men and women in uniform who keep us safe. The problem? Our jails and prisons are overcrowded. Our correctional officers and Montana Highway Patrol troopers aren't paid what they deserve. And we should invest in a long-term plan to address the safety needs of all Montanans. Unfortunately, under Joe Biden, we saw a massive increase in the number of illegal immigrants entering our country, including violent transnational gang members right here in Montana. I'm relieved to see President Trump and his administration securing our border and deporting violent criminals. Here in Montana, our proposal included historic investments to fix what is broken, get criminals off the street, and keep Montanans safe. The reality is, we can't arrest and prosecute criminals if we don't have a place to put them. In fact, I'm told there are thousands of unserved warrants in Montana due to a lack of space to lock up violent criminals. In my budget, we invest $150 million of one-time only funding for an additional 500 beds at the Montana State Prison, because too many criminals who should be housed at the state prison are taking up space in county detention centers. And when it comes to pay for the men and women who serve in our correctional system and those who wear the uniform of the Montana Highway Patrol, they should be paid what they deserve to keep us safe. That's why I also proposed investing $6.5 million in our correctional officers, providing them a pay increase, more training, and better resources. And I call for an additional $7 million to increase pay for men and women of the Montana Highway Patrol. Let's be crystal clear. Our law enforcement officers are heroes. Our heroes deserve hero pay. And while I believe games are won with 3 to 5 yard plays, when it comes to public safety, it's time to think big. For far too long, the state has neglected the problems plaguing our public safety system. No more. By using $250 million, again, of one-time only funding, we can develop and execute a long-term plan to improve public safety and keep criminals off the street, to expand capacity of our corrections system, to alleviate overcrowding in our jails, and to keep offenders in our correctional facilities in Montana. Yesterday, I visited with law enforcement officers in Billings and Yellowstone County, as well as federal law enforcement. And you know what I heard? They need help. They need more resources to get their job done. And they need us here in Helena to put our money where our mouth is to keep Montanans safe. I was honored to be joined by Yellowstone County Sheriff Mike Lender, Billings Police Chief Rich St. John, County Attorney Scott Twito, correction officers including Warden Katie Weston from the Women's Prison, troopers of the Montana Highway Patrol, how the state can do a better job of making Montana safe. Sheriff Lender said, and I quote, "Our county jails are busting at the seams," end quote. He went on to say that the problem has a lot to do with capacity at the state prison, because many of the people in our county detention facilities would otherwise be at the state prison. And he's right. Billings Police Chief Rich St. John said the ripple effect of our investments will help keep Montanans safe. He told me that 60% of the arrests in Billings are repeat offenders, and increased capacity will benefit our communities. County Attorney Scott Twito praised our bold investments, saying it's frustrating for the boots on the ground when they make an arrest and there's no place to put them. By making these investments, we can ensure our law enforcement officers are supported and Montanans are safe. I fundamentally believe Montanans sent policymakers to Helena to address the challenges that Montanans face. Our focus remains on delivering meaningful solutions for those challenges, cutting property taxes without further burdening income taxpayers, cutting the income tax rate most Montanans pay, creating a high-quality education system, and standing up for the most fundamental responsibilities of government to keep our people safe. With that, I'd be happy to open it up for questions. And who wants to be first? Yes.
Shirley Rager, Montana Public Radio. So there was some discussion yesterday on House Bill 2 on the floor about public safety, about overcrowding in jails and our prisons. Some lawmakers seem concerned that the contract with CoreCivic to have inmates out of state to help ease this capacity issue will be ongoing, continue to grow. Others say expanding the prison will be able to bring those inmates back. Do you have a sense of how long it'll take to peel back that contract with CoreCivic, or do you see it in place for a while longer?
Okay, so it's a good point. We'd like to house inmates here in the state. That's why we made it a priority to expand the facilities at Deer Lodge at the Montana State Prison. But even these additional 500 beds is not going to be enough long term. So having an ability to flex capacity using third parties is probably going to be part of the mix for a while. But we're behind the 8 ball because we have not made these investments for decades and decades. So upgrading existing facilities in Deer Lodge is what we did last session. This actually adds 500 additional beds, another $250 million to look at the entire correction system and find out where else we need capacity and what else we need to change is going to help us reduce the reliance on out-of-state resources. Yes?
Eric, did you come in here? I just wanted to ask about your income tax proposal. The lawmakers of both parties expressed some concern that income tax cuts as you propose them could eventually put the state at risk of structural imbalance with the budget. Do you think that's a fair concern?
This is something, so the question is the income tax proposal that we've made to lower the rate that most Montanans pay from 5.9 to 4.9, does that jeopardize the state budget in some way? We do not believe it does. We've done the calculations. We have a structural surplus. We allocate, it's just over $800 million over the next 2 years. I believe because we've overcharged the people of Montana, we ought to let them keep more of what they earn. Can be honest debate about how much to reduce the top rate. We've proposed going from 5.9 to 4.9. Reasonable people can debate this, but at the end of the day, we must have an income tax reform proposal that lowers the rate that most Montanans pay. Carving out special groups and giving special breaks to special interests or special groups of Montanans, just not fair.
And follow up there, I think those folks are looking at a legislative fiscal budget report that is looking at, I believe, the 2028, 2029 budget, so not the next 2 years, but the subsequent 2 years. If those income tax cuts pass as you propose them, will the state be looking at spending cuts come next session?
We do not anticipate spending cuts. We've been very fiscally responsible. And understand, this is the third chapter of our fiscal policies. We've reduced income tax rates in 2021 and the economy boomed. We lowered income tax rates in 2023 and the economy boomed. We've had record low unemployment, more people working than ever before. Let me just say the strategy that we've laid out and have been implementing is working. It's time to do the next step, which is to bring down the rate that most Montanans pay for income taxes. I think there can be honest debate about how much to lower it if there's concern in the legislature. Let's have a discussion. None of those legislators have come to me to talk to me about an alternative proposal. So I would welcome the discussion. Let's get around the table and figure this out for the people of Montana. Yes?
Blair Miller with the newspapers. 231, the Homestead Act that you've been pushing, got tabled yesterday too. I know nothing's dead till sign you die. And you specifically mentioned Senator Hertz and Senator Beer earlier. Just curious about how you feel about that, the task force's sort of main proposal getting tabled at this point, along with sort of some of these other property tax proposals that have been moving.
Yeah, so the question is about 231 and homestead rate reductions. Let me be really clear. I think the legislature and our office, all of us in elected office, have been given a mandate by the people of Montana to implement permanent property tax relief in this session. We put together a group of folks. It included legislative leadership from both parties, state officials, local officials. We spent almost a year canvassing all the best ideas, and the best idea that collective group came up with was the homestead rate reduction. And as we've discussed many times, it would lower taxes for Montana homeowners by about 15%. It would lower property taxes for small business by 18%. It would benefit renters. It's the fairest approach that will deliver permanent tax relief. And I was disappointed, as Montanans were disappointed, in the bill getting tabled yesterday. You're right, it's not over till it's over. But we collectively, I include myself and the legislature, we can't leave here without implementing permanent property tax relief for the people of Montana. And we can't do it, we won't do it by further burdening income taxpayers by taking money out of the general fund, because we already have the highest income tax rate in the region, and we need to bring that rate down as well. Yeah, Jonathan, you're stuck behind the light, so I didn't see your hand.
Yes, Governor Jonathan Andarian from the Montana Television Network. You said a couple of times that some of the other tax proposals floating around are not touching all groups in the same way, and I wonder if you could elaborate further on where you feel that some of the other proposals are falling short.
Yeah, so the question is about fairness of these various proposals, and I'm open to alternative proposals, but I think particularly on income tax reductions, most Montanans, anybody making more than $20,000 per year, pays the highest rate, the 5.9% rate. Our proposal would bring that rate down for all Montanans, and Montanans at every income level would benefit. There are other proposals that would only benefit a portion of Montanans by, let's say, expanding the lower bracket. Let's be clear, that's a very progressive approach that is not a conservative approach to tax reform. This is why we've been such a strong advocate for bringing that top rate down.
To follow that question, so it sounds like your concern is that the lawmakers might see a proposal that reduces the taxes for people, lower income people, but not reduce it also for higher income people. Is that correct? And if so, why is that your philosophy?
So I believe that we should be moving towards a flat tax, which is one rate for everybody. People that make more money pay more taxes. People that make less money pay less taxes. I think we need to give some extra relief for low income folks. That's why we've advocated for the earned income, expanding the earned income tax credit. But having a progressive tax structure is, as I mentioned, a very progressive approach to tax policy. When I came into office, we had 7 tax brackets of increasing rates depending on how much money you made. We've been moving away from that for 4 years. We need to take the last step and get to a flat tax.
Why is a progressive rate structure bad?
A progressive structure, I think we need to help people at the lower end of the income tax structure. This is why I've been an advocate for an earned income tax credit. But I think it's just basically fair. We heard this from Grover Norquist when he was out here. He's been working on tax policy for 40 years. When you get to a flat tax, as many other states have done, or eliminated income tax entirely, you have a fairer system because everyone shares the burden based on their income level, and that's what we're advocating for. Yes?
I'm always interested in pulling back the curtain a little bit. little bit on how these legislative negotiations happen. If 231 it's on the table, you want to get it back off the table, you want to blast it, you want to get property tax relief this session, where do you see that you can put pressure on lawmakers? What leverage do you have right now in these negotiations?
Well, I don't think it's so much me having leverage. I think the issue is Montanans sent us here with a mandate to lower property taxes. They're too high. We spent a year putting a proposal together, which included legislative leadership from both parties. We have a proposal. It's called a homestead rate reduction. I'm open to other proposals. The one thing I will not do is put additional burden on income taxpayers to fund property tax relief. If there's other proposals, I would invite the legislature to bring them forward. Let's have a discussion. But the homestead rate reduction has already passed the House. We just need the Senate to pass it. And Montanans, not so much me, but Montanans are expecting action on this issue. We need permanent property tax relief in this session. Frankly, none of us can leave here until we do that. Yeah.
And we talked before about sort of, without the sales tax, having to shift tax burdens, basically having to do it in some regard. When you're talking about not wanting to put it on income taxpayers, does that signal that there has to be some property taxpayer that is going to have to hold that burden, be it industrial or big commercial, or, obviously the Homestead Act kind of put it more towards them, but what's your philosophy on that now as we're on day 65 here?
Yeah, well, the homestead rate reduction does shift it to people with second homes. That's how it's done. And understand that the state doesn't get any property tax. It pays for local services, and we've had significant spending increases at the local level. Inflation has averaged a little over 2% for the last 20 years, but local spending has averaged over 6%. And we're seeing that bird come home to roost in high property taxes. I think that the homestead rate reduction is a program that's been implemented by a number of other states very successfully. The collective wisdom of the bipartisan group we put together was that would be a good idea for Montana. Again, it's passed the House. It's under consideration in the Senate, although it's taking a circuitous route. It's time to pass it and get it to my desk.
When you say, Jaylee, Montana Public Radio, when you say we can't live here without property tax relief, if 231 does not pass the Senate, could you see yourself calling a special session to do property tax relief in the summer?
It's premature, but I think we have a mandate. Myself and the legislature, Montanans expect us to pass permanent property tax relief. And because we already have the highest income tax rate in the region, we can't lower property taxes by further burdening income taxpayers. So those are the boundaries on the box that I'm willing to negotiate with the legislature. We need to get to the table and figure this out. Yeah, you get the last question, Jonathan.
Thank you, Governor. Do you think with as long as it's taken for the property tax bills to move their way through, do you think now that there will be some need for some kind of rebate? Because we saw the first kind of rebate proposal bill earlier this week in the Senate side. So do you think is that something that you think may now be needed for the short term?
It's possible. I think it's one of the ingredients in the stew. We'd certainly consider it. We were clear. We needed property tax release by February 15th to roll it out this year. I still think we have to get permanent property tax relief done. If we miss the window for this year, a rebate might be a stopgap to get us to permanent relief, but we can't leave here without doing permanent property tax relief that benefits Montana homeowners. We have a proposal. It's passed the House. It was the result of a year-long process with legislative leadership from both sides. It's under consideration in the Senate. I urge them to get it to my desk. Thank you, everybody.